First, let's start with this case. I, 27F, split from my soon-to-be ex-husband, 27, 3 months ago, the same day our son was born. The reason? I'm a redhead, my ex is blonde, but our baby was born with dark hair. In the delivery room, he completely lost it, accusing me of cheating. His behavior escalated to the point where he was kicked out of the hospital. I begged him to take a paternity test, which he finally agreed to after a month of constant tension. When the results came back, they proved I hadn't cheated. We've been together since we were 13, so his accusations devastated me. At first, I wanted to reconcile, but over time I realized I couldn't be with someone who based their trust in me on high school-level genetics misunderstandings. During that month of waiting, I was treated terribly by nearly everyone except my older brother Alex. My ex, his family, and even some of my own family and friends believed I had cheated. It was one of the hardest experiences of my life, and as a result, I've lost many of those relationships. After the test results cleared my name, my ex started begging me to get back with him. I moved in with Alex, but my ex has been showing up almost every day to plead his case. His family, especially his mother, has been relentless in harassing me as well. My mother-in-law came to Alex's house 4 times last week, begging me to let God back into my heart and forgive her son. I used to be a Christian, as are my in-laws and much of my family. However, the way I was treated by the church community during this ordeal shattered my faith. I was ostracized and judged when I needed support the most, and I've decided I don't want to raise my son in that kind of environment. Yesterday, my MIL showed up again, this time with the pastor from my former church. They forced their way into Alex's house while he wasn't home. Once inside, they berated me for not forgiving my ex and accused me of being sinful and spiteful. The pastor even went as far as to say I would go to hell if I didn't take my ex back. I excused myself, pretending I needed to use the bathroom, but instead I called the police. My MIL and the pastor were escorted out of the house by officers. Since then, I've been flooded with harassment on social media, phone calls, and texts from people who know me, my ex, and his family. They're calling me the bad guy for going nuclear and involving the police when the situation wasn't physically threatening. Now I'm starting to feel guilty because, in their own twisted way, I know they think they're helping. Did I overreact by calling the police, or was I justified in setting that boundary? Am I the wrong one here? Let's start judging. You know what? Social media is vastly overrated. Why don't you take a break from it for a week or a year or two? And mute your phone. Nobody is saying anything new. Your husband and his community of flying monkeys treated you abominably. Thank God for DNA tests to prove you aren't a cheater. By their actions, they all showed their butts. You don't have to accept their demand that you get over it and forgive them. Your loving husband may say he is sorry now, but take him to court and make him sorry. Best of luck. You're not in the wrong. You're not in the wrong. I was watching Seventh Heaven last night, and Annie is sitting with Julie, whose husband isn't so nice for rules of subreddit's sake. When she brings up the argument of, I made a vow to God, I can't divorce him, Annie has a rebuttal. Now, I'm going to paraphrase this based on my own beliefs, so bear with me. When you made those vows before your God and the universe, your God wasn't the only one watching. You made a vow before the universe to love and cherish him. But he made vows too, and one of those is to trust you as he trusts God. Would he ever accuse God of cheating or of being unfaithful to anyone? No, he wouldn't. Now, I don't know how Christianity feels about contracts, but my religious path deals heavily in them. And in my faith, if the person doesn't uphold their end, then they are the one breaking the contract. He didn't protect you. He didn't keep you safe. He made you feel worthless and betrayed. He didn't do any of the things that he vowed to do, so you shouldn't be held to the terms of that contract. I mean marriage. You have with him in the eyes of any good and kind Lord, which means that you were being held hostage in your own home, and that is definitely something that you need to defend yourself from. Any one of us would have called the police in that position. You're not in the wrong. Ask the pastor and your MIL if they harassed the father and told him to forgive you for your lapse in judgment when they all thought you cheated. If they didn't, then they're hypocrites. Next up, a while back, I posted a picture on my Instagram stories of my cat sitting next to my kitchen counter while I was cooking. He was on his own stool, simply watching. To clarify, my cat does not go on the counters or near the food. He's well trained and stays in his designated space. Shortly after I posted it, my friend Rose reposted my story with her own caption, a puke face emoji and the phrase, "You can't eat everybody's house." I chose to ignore it and move on, even though it felt unnecessary and rude. Rose has a habit of regurgitating popular social media trends and phrases. She's the type who will constantly say things like, "Pineapple on pizza, monsters." "Raisins in cookies are why I have trust issues," or "Is the ex in the room with us right now?" While it can be a little annoying, she has other redeeming qualities, so I usually let it slide. That said, I tend to avoid spending one-on-one time with her because of these traits. Fast forward to about a month ago, I hosted a small get-together to celebrate acquiring some Le Creuset cookware. Ah, the joys of getting older. I prepared a homemade meal, and we had a lovely evening with good food and great company. I didn't invite Rose. She found out about the gathering after seeing posts on other people's Instagram stories and confronted me. She accused me of giving high school mean girl vibes. I calmly explained that she had made it clear she doesn't eat at the homes of people who have cats, so I didn't think she'd want to come to a dinner party hosted by me, a cat owner. She got defensive and claimed she could have attended without eating anything. I responded that perhaps she should be more careful about what she says in the future, because her comments made it seem like she would have no interest in attending. Since then, Rose has been telling people that I'm giving high school mean girl to nurse pipeline vibes. For the record, I'm an accountant. So, am I the bad guy for not inviting her to my dinner party? She clearly implied she wouldn't eat food from someone with a cat, so why would she even want to come? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. Words have meaning. You were simply believing what she said and acted accordingly. She's free to be upset about it, but in the end, you respected her opinion and didn't expose yourself to what likely would have been a ridicule-fueled evening. You're not in the wrong. You didn't invite someone who was not only pretty explicit about not wanting to eat around cats, but inferred that it's a vomit-inducing offense to do so. Actions meet consequences. I am offended by the exclusion of details on your Le Creuset cookware. Come on, don't leave us hanging here. You're not in the wrong. I also like quoting the internet and shoving memes down the throats of my friends and family, but not at the expense of anyone I know. She's trying to hide being mean by acting like she's some quirky internet influencer. She's not. She's just mean. And since she's so stuck on the mean girls thing, just post a picture of Regina George asking, "Why are you so obsessed with me?" Next up, my stepdaughter Linda, 15, has ADHD, which presents a lot of challenges, especially since she's very forgetful. While she uses tools like lists and apps to help, she often gets distracted quickly, which is a major problem when it comes to cooking. Linda doesn't particularly like the food I make, so she prefers to cook for herself. However, this has become a serious issue because she frequently leaves the kitchen while cooking, not for a few minutes, but for long periods of time. This usually ends with food being burnt to the point of becoming a mess on the stove. My husband and I have repeatedly told her that she needs to set an alarm or some sort of reminder if she leaves the kitchen while cooking, but she doesn't follow through. Today, I came home to yet another instance of her burning food on the stove. I'd had enough. My husband and I sat Linda down and laid out a set of rules for her to follow if she wants to cook. She cannot leave the kitchen while cooking. She must inform someone in the house that she's cooking. If she burns food to the point of being completely ruined, pitch black, she will be grounded from cooking for a week. Linda is very upset with these rules, and now her mom, my husband's ex-wife, has gotten involved, accusing us of restricting Linda's access to her own food. She called us huge jerks for implementing these rules. From my perspective, these rules aren't about being restrictive. They're about ensuring her safety and preventing property damage. But now I'm wondering, are we being too harsh, or are these reasonable boundaries given the circumstances? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. My ADHD kid once put a mac and cheese cup in the microwave without water in it. Yeah, that can equal smoke and possibly fire. Luckily, I was there and noticed the smoke right away, preventing a fire. That was 2 years ago. She knows she has to tell me when she's making something. And I always remind her about the water. It's not an insult, it's an adaptation. This is setting up rules for the safety of your home and to avoid food waste. Period. Part of learning to live with ADHD is setting up systems to help keep you on track. That's all this is. You're not in the wrong. My kids have ADHD, and one of our all-the-time rules is they can never leave the kitchen while the stove or oven is on, because time blindness is real, and that's how houses get burned down. You're not in the wrong. This is a serious safety hazard. You're all very fortunate that she hasn't started a fire. Yet, honestly, I'd go even farther than you did in setting restrictions. My rule would be that she is not permitted to cook, ever, except under adult supervision, until she demonstrates that she can do it safely. Ex-wife's opinion is irrelevant. If she doesn't like the rules you've set for Linda, then she's welcome to have this walking fire hazard in her kitchen for a few months. Next up, I, 38F, am married with twin daughters, Amy and Nina, 6F. We live in the same town as most of my husband's family, in a house I inherited from my grandfather. It's the largest house in the family, so we often host family gatherings. My husband's youngest sister, Jane, 31F, has spent most of her 20s traveling for work. In mid-2022, she moved in with her fiancé about 30 minutes from us. Since then, Jane has been more present at family gatherings, rebuilding relationships with everyone. However, one thing she consistently refuses to do is address my daughters by their names. Amy and Nina are identical twins. While I understand that people sometimes refer to them as the twins, I believe it's important to respect their individuality. I've made a point of asking family and friends to treat them as individuals, especially now that they're 6. My daughters have different interests and styles. Amy loves making crafts, and Nina enjoys painting, so it's not difficult to tell them apart. Despite this, Jane insists on calling them the twins and makes no effort to distinguish between them. I've repeatedly asked her to address them by their names, just like she does with her other nieces and nephews, but she always brushes me off. The issue came to a head last Christmas. Amy folded paper cranes and Nina painted flower pictures as Christmas gifts for the family. Each gift was signed with their names, and the girls handed them out individually. Later, Jane was video calling her fiancé in the living room while the rest of us were nearby. Her fiancé noticed the crane in her hand and asked where it came from. Jane responded, "Oh, one of the twins gave it to me for Christmas." The other twin drew some flowers. I was upset. My daughters worked hard on their gifts, and they deserved to have their efforts recognized. After everyone left, I told Jane that moving forward, I expected her to address Amy and Nina by their names, recognize their individuality, and make an effort to know their differences. Jane dismissed me, saying my daughters are too young for it to matter. I told her she would not be welcome in my home until she started treating my daughters as individuals. She stomped off, clearly angry. My husband agreed with me. A few days ago, my mother-in-law called to plan my husband's birthday celebration in early February. I offered to host as usual, but told her Jane would not be invited. When MIL learned why, she became angry at Jane. Later, Jane called me, furious. She accused me of overreacting and making a big deal out of something insignificant. Jane said my daughters would always be known as the twins, whether I liked it or not, and that people would only recognize them as individuals when they're older. She added that they're just a couple of little girls, and that I need to let this go. Jane argued that she deserves to be with her family for her brother's birthday, and called me the bad guy for excluding her. So, am I the one overreacting here? Am I wrong for banning Jane from my house over this? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. As the mother of identical twin girls who are now adults, I was very intentional about clearly treating them as individuals while still enjoying the uniqueness of being twins. Creating an environment where they are treated as two separate humans, not a unit, is incredibly important. They have commented more than once how much they appreciated this growing up. Stick to your guns on this. You're not in the wrong. It sucks to be identified as only a relationship with another party versus your own unique identity. This is their family, You do not dress them alike. I'm assuming their hair is cut differently given you referenced it. It sounds like they do not present themselves as twins, so it's pretty darn rude and ballsy of Jane to think glossing over their names and only identifying them as the twins is okay. This is your home and you are within your right to do this. That said, you might be going about this wrong. And it sounds like you can get your Mael and your husband's family on your team here to fix Jane's attitude. From henceforth, Jane is only known as Mael's youngest daughter. Never a name, just Mael's youngest daughter. Or your husband's sister. You will make the point abundantly clear to her if you guys handle it this way, because Jane will get darn sick of being Nana's youngest daughter or Floyd's youngest sister without a name. Get the girls in on it too. No more Auntie Jane, just Nana's youngest daughter. You're not in the wrong. Your girls deserve to be individuals and not have their identities smushed into a collective single. She is dehumanizing your babies by doing this. You're not in the wrong. Protect your babies. There is absolutely nothing wrong with forcing someone to undergo the consequences of their actions.